always a dangerous thing to do. You can never just like go and meet puppies. Then Aquila started following me around. I helped sift through her intestines. Dating on the road. Maybe that's a little harsh. We're hoping to complete this build in about 2 months. I would say don't fall into and consume clickbaity content. This lifestyle is not created for comfort when that is not the full reality of the situation. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am making myself a little iced coffee right now because I have a freezer. Absolute luxury. Well, this week I am doing a question and answer. I love doing vlogs. They're so fun for me to create and put together and edit and produce in a way, but there are things that I don't really have time to answer during a vlog. And so I thought that I would take this week and dedicate some time to answering some questions that continue to come up. So I threw a question box on my Instagram story and collected a whole lot of questions. So we're going to talk about all things from Aquila to hunting to dating on the road, and I'm hoping that this will get down into the nitty-gritty of some of the things that you guys are curious about. Alright, I'm going to start with one of the most asked questions, and that is about Aquila. There were many questions about this. This specific question asks, how did you and Aquila come to be? Was she a puppy? So I have not shared this story on any social media. One of the reasons why I haven't really shared her story or our story is because of the events leading up to it. They've been very hard for me to talk about, and it's really just been within the last, I don't know, 2 years or so that I can tell this story without breaking down. So when I was in college, I got a shepherd, and her name was Denali, and she was a dark sable color, so she was like a dark black brown. Denali was 8 weeks old when I got her, and one of the reasons why I wanted a dog is because I didn't have a lot of people in my life. I mean, I was playing athletics in college, and I didn't have a lot of people that liked to do the things that I did. And so Denali was that for me. She was my adventure partner, and we traveled together, and we went to the park together. And anyway, when she was about 1, she was hit by a car one evening. She somehow got out of the house, and long story short, I watched her on the side of the road, got hit in the back. She was paralyzed, lost control of her bowels, very much struggling. There was no time to bring her to the vet, and I watched her die on the side of the road. And that was a really devastating experience for me. And after experiencing that and trying to heal from that, and when I decided that I wanted and was ready for another dog, I decided that I still wanted a shepherd, but I didn't want anything that looked like Denali. And so I was cruising Craigslist, and I saw a litter of puppies that looked to have some lighter shepherds in it. And I had never been interested in having a white dog. I never planned on having you. Like I said, I didn't want anything to remind me of Denali, and so I saw this litter of puppies. They had a few white ones in there, and I figured I would just go and meet the puppies, which is always a dangerous thing to do. You can never just like go and meet puppies. And so I got there, and it was just a very strange situation, and I don't want to make it. Do you want to tell your story? She was very cheap for a shepherd. She's full-blood German shepherd. And I had asked to like go in and like meet them and interact with the puppies, and I didn't really notice her right away. I had my eye on this like cream-colored one, and there's this little tri-colored girl. Then Aquila started following me around, and she had her ears back, and she was like following me. And I remember the boy that was selling them, he was like, oh, she never does that. And in my like heartbroken world, to me, I was like, oh, it's fate, like she's choosing me, you know? But in reality, the reason that she really never interacted with people like that is because she has some trust issues. She really does not trust strangers. She is very fearful of them and timid, and for some reason she wasn't with me. Anyway, so she was following me around. It was super sweet, and I decided, I was like, yeah, she's awesome, like this is the one that I want. When I left with her, so she was 4 months old when I actually like took her from the family. So she had only ever interacted with her litter mates, and she hadn't seen any other humans other than the family that, you know, was raising them and had bred them. When I took her finally, like I said, she was 4 months old at that point. I didn't have any idea that she wasn't socialized at all in any capacity. When I took her, they were like, here, have another one, like take another one just for free, you can have another puppy. And at that point I was about to travel from Utah back to Missouri, I think. I was doing a trip across country in my little beat up Camry, and I didn't have space for 2 puppies. Like it would have been wild, but I really regret not taking her sister. Get that fly, get it. Oh, the first year of her life was quite the roller coaster. We learned very quickly that she was really scared, especially of men. A lot of work happened that first year. And should we tell them about your incidents? I also learned that Aquila really likes to eat things. I'm not doing this. So when she was about 6 months old, she started to vomit. I took her into the vet, and they messed up, misdiagnosed her. About a week after I had initially taken her in, she was still not eating and drinking, and late one night she vomited poop, which they say doesn't happen, but I can tell you it does. So she vomited poop, and I called the emergency vet. At this point I knew this vet well because I had shadowed her actually for a few months. I was interested in being a vet. Rushed her into this emergency vet. They took an x-ray, which they had not done before. Turned out she had a giant obstruction, like a giant bowel obstruction, and that vet had said she needs to get into surgery right now. It was a very small veterinary clinic, and she was the only one in. She said, Aquila needs to get into surgery right now, and you're gonna need to help. So I helped put Aquila under, shave her, prep her for surgery. I helped sift through her intestines. There ended up being she had swallowed a ball, a tennis ball, a whole tennis ball. That's why now she only is allowed these chuckets. People are really getting to know you, my girl. I'm not gonna hold this for you, but I'm gonna put it right there. So we found the bowel obstruction, which was a ball, a tennis ball that she had swallowed. And there was a section about this big, I know, it was crazy, that was necrosed. So it was dead flesh of her intestine. And so the doctor cut that out, and I held Aquila's intestines together as she sewed them back together. Made sure that there was no more bleeding because there are just so many vessels in that organ. I'm still like monitoring Aquila's heart rate and breathing and everything as she's under, and slowly allow her to wake up. So at this point it's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning when she's finally starting to come out of surgery. Oh, you get them? About a week and a half after her bowel obstruction, she started vomiting again. When I brought her into the doctor, they were like, we don't know what's going on. It could be something with the incision that her body's reacting to. We have to go in and figure it out. So she went in for her second surgery, not knowing she'd eaten the sock. Turns out she ate the sock, had another bowel obstruction. So it was a pretty crazy first 6 months of her life. And then a few months later, Aquila had a third bowel obstruction. That time was also a sock. So we learned very fast that tennis balls and socks were not going to be a part of our lives. There are a lot of questions about how Aquila has adjusted to the van, and I have answered this before, but I think a big reason why this wasn't an adjustment at all is because from the first time that I got Aquila, we've been traveling together. So I traveled a bunch in my little beat up Camry. After that we had a 4Runner. We've spent many nights in the backcountry. She loves tent camping. I've also just cowboy camped with her. We've been all across the country, and this is prior to van life, so she has always been very used to her environment changing. I think a lot of her stability comes from me. We've been traveling in vehicles and in the backcountry and doing all of that for her entire life. So you have been an adventure pup forever, really just for 5 years. And she's 5. That's another big question. This will be a quick one. I have a few questions about my tattoos. I will show you them, but I'm not gonna go into meaning because it would take forever and it's really personal for almost all of them. So I have this one. It's wild bergamot with a honeybee. And then I have this one, which is essentially a moon and a sun. I have this one, which is a red-tailed hawk. I have this one, which is a little mushroom. And then I've got one on my back that I'll try to show you. Those are my tattoos, and I am planning on getting more, regardless of what people say. So this specific question is, how's dating been since you're always on the go-go? What do you think? Dating on the road. Here's what I'm gonna say about this. I think that dating while living full-time on the road can have its perks and it can have its downsides. I have spent time with people who are not nomads, and I have spent time with people who are nomads. And there's a very stark difference. Knowing that you are almost always going to be packing up and leaving is kind of a tricky thing. For me, I think it's been really important for me to tell the person that I'm spending time with, like, hey, I'm only going to be in the area for 2 more weeks, and making that really clear. But I think it's a really cool way to date. You have time with somebody, and it can be kind of whatever you want it to, whatever you're comfortable with, and then you're kind of moving on and learning and experiencing different places and different people, and I think when people that are nomadic, when they start seeing each other, spending time with each other, there's a lot less bullshit, and a lot of that is stripped away because both people have a life that they love and that they want to keep living. And so you have conversations really fast about, like, hey, are we going to spend time together? Because that's a very intentional decision, especially when you're traveling full time. And so you kind of like get to the root of things pretty fast, which I think is great because I don't like dealing with the kind of like unknowns of dating. There was a long while though where I wasn't really open to dating, or I wasn't interested in seeing people in a way that was serious in any sense. I will say that has changed recently. That's all I got. What to say to unsupportive family and friends? F them. Maybe that's a little harsh. Don't say anything. Do what you love, figure out a way to make it happen, work super hard, and then allow your life and your joy and your happiness, your ups and downs, how you respond to them, make that be your message to your unsupportive family and friends. I think it's really easy for people to be unsupportive when they don't see somebody thriving in the ways that they expect, and it doesn't mean that it will always be that way. Yeah. You don't have to say anything to them. Just go do your thing. Much easier said than done. Any big plans for this year, or just going with the flow? I do have big plans for this year. I don't think I have announced this yet to anybody except for my patrons. Noah and I are doing a build of a 7x14 toy hauler starting in April. We're hoping to complete this build in about 2 months, and I think it is going to be so cool. I am really excited to build with Noah, and the other boys might pop in and help us build too. I think that'd be so fun. If you're new here, I have 3 brothers, Josiah, Noah, and Luke. They've all appeared on the channel at some point or another. Noah is the one that had a truck build, but yeah, he's gonna be turning his toy hauler, 7x14 toy hauler, into a tiny home. And that build is going to be more extensive than my van. It's going to be a little bit more complex and more like home-like. We have been figuring out details for that, so when we do get to Wisconsin and get settled in for the build, we can just like knock it out, and I'll be vlogging everything. At that point, maybe I could even do 2 vlogs per week, just because I think we're gonna be moving so fast and having a lot of progress. And I'm like so excited for that. Tips for young solo females wanting to go full-time. I think I could probably make an entire video just on this, but number 1, I would say don't fall into and consume clickbaity content. The reason I say that is because there are a lot of views and there's a lot of content created that isn't the full truth of van life as a solo female. And I'm thinking of things that are really scary on the road, or really creepy people, or very unsafe things. Like, people gravitate towards that, so people make a lot of content around it. When I think the reality is that most people are really good, and as long as you are smart and intuitive and have safety precautions in place, you are in a good position on the road. That does not mean that nothing will or can never happen, but I would hate for solo females to be consuming a lot of that content and be really scared on the road, or for that to prevent them from going out and traveling on their own. So that's my first piece. Second piece, get really used to being uncomfortable. I think just in life that's a really valuable thing, but this lifestyle is not created for comfort. There's no way that you're going to make a van feel like a stationary home. So just forget that idea altogether. You're going to be uncomfortable, you're going to be hot, you're going to be cold, you're going to have scary poop situations, scary as in close calls, or not knowing where to go. Maybe you'll have a toilet in your van, then whatever. You'll still probably have scary poop situations even with a toilet in your van. I've heard of many. Forget the idea of comfort and start seeking that out, because it's fun and you're going to grow a lot. I think really just the third thing is to be gentle with yourself and try your very best to get rid of any expectations. I think it's pretty normal to have this image of what your full-time travel life will be, and just scrap it, because it won't be that. And I think getting rid of those expectations is actually going to open up space for an experience that you can really learn from and grow from, and then shape to kind of be your own. Those are kind of broad, but that's what came to mind. All right, I'm going to move into some of these hunting questions. So, will I be documenting my hunting and fishing on YouTube? Yes, to an extent. YouTube is pretty sensitive to that, and so I think that yes, I'll be documenting my experiences and showing some of it in the way that I know I can on the platform. Something that maybe some of you don't know is that originally I wasn't going to share any of it on any platform. I was really scared, because I do think that there is such a huge disconnect, and people think, oh my gosh, you just want to kill animals, when that is not the full reality of the situation. In a similar realm, this person asked, were you afraid that the vegans would come for you? So what's funny about this is, yes, sure. But I have an incredible amount of vegans that follow me and that reach out often and say, wow, like, thank you. I am so excited to watch this journey, even as a vegan. Or I love that you're hoping to document some of your experiences so people understand where our food comes from. And I think that I resonate with those people. So I think it's less about like labeling them as vegans and more about how people think in terms of where their food comes from and what they're supporting. So I think it's less black and white than that. All right, somebody asked, what am I reading right now? This is a hot topic for my Instagram family, but I will share on here as well. Let me grab my books. All right, the main book that I'm focusing on right now is the third book of the Farseer trilogy. I really like fantasy, so my friend Chris got me on this series, and I love it. But I'm the type of person that also reads other books depending on my mood. So I am going through The Comfort Crisis for the second time for the most part. I read this book and it impacted me deeply. I read it one time through and now I'm kind of reading it through a second time as almost like a study and just like really soaking in the words, underlining things I love. I did my Alone in the Woods video kind of surrounding this book, and I'll link that video up here if you haven't seen it. And then this book is called Facing the Mountain, and this is about World War II, but from the perspective of Japanese heroes that were fighting for America. So very, very interesting read. Obviously very history heavy, but I'm learning a lot. What is the #1 recommendation for women building a van for their first time? Learn your systems. And what I mean by that is what I experienced when building my van was that a lot of my anxiety and doubt came from not really understanding certain things. So like, let's say electrical. Not understanding how electrical works or what's safe and what's not safe. And so a lot of my anxiety that came from the start was like, oh wait, if I cut this wire, am I going to die of electrocution? But once you understand your system and you know what's behind everything, it just adds confidence to what you're doing. And that can be as little as like really understanding your drill to like understanding your electrical system so that you can do the thing with confidence and efficiency, I guess. Not saying that you need to be efficient, because I was not, but a deep understanding of what you're doing is really helpful. So hours and hours and hours and hours of learning and watching and reading. It also feels really great to then be on the road and know all of those things. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a smoother process when things go wrong, because that is inevitable. All right, I'm going to end with some really rapid fire questions. What software do you use for editing? Adobe Premiere Pro. Any book recommendations? Braiding Sweetgrass and The Comfort Crisis. Did you insulate the headliner cabinet? Yes. Do you ever miss having a larger living space? No. Is van life all it's cracked up to be? For me, yes. Are you going to Schoolypalooza next year? I'd like to, but it depends. Planning when you live on the road is a little tricky. Do you like hugs? Love them. I want to thank you guys for sending in the questions that you did. I'm hoping that this helped a little bit or provided some sort of entertainment. For the next few weeks, I will get back to our normal vlogs. So Aquila and I will see you then.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. All the good times just